right, we're gonna get ready to begin our second panel this afternoon. Mic technician. So we're gonna somewhat shift the focus of discussion. So maybe we'll start just by having each of the panelists again just introduce yourselves and why you're here, what brings you here, and the kind of work that you do related to this issue. Then we'll dive right in.
All right, we're here. Good. I gotta say testimony too. I'm hip hop. Testimony too. My name is Kobe Dennis, founder director of Project Night Vision and the Dream Center. I work with young people from ages 12 to 22. I've been doing it for over 20 years. I'm in the streets, and I think I get invited to these seminars and these different speaking engagements to give a real perspective of what young people expect and what they do on an everyday basis.
Good morning, my name is Tamina Davis. I'm the Associate Director for Diversity and Inclusion at Boston College. I am a native of Rhode Island and a product of the Providence public school system. I graduated from Central High School many moons ago. But one of the main reasons why I'm here, other than being asked by a fellow classmate, is that it's very important for me that particularly young people of color, but young men of color, have a different narrative of what it means to be a man of color. Because what you're seeing today is not the sum of who you are. And so for me, anytime I get to talk to youth, interact with youth outside of my role at BC or higher education, is to show you that it doesn't matter where you come from, it's what you do with your past and your history and your experience to be a contributing member of society. So for me, showing you and telling you that there's a different narrative that you need to know about is very important.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm Adriana Dawson. I'm here representing Roger Williams University. I've had the pleasure of working for the university now for a whole 2 months. I lead their employer and diversity, their employer and industry outreach efforts. Prior to that, I was the state director for the Rhode Island Small Business Development Center. So today, I will share with you my perspective on entrepreneurship and really how you should think about your hustle and your swag as a form of entrepreneurship. Because as I work with industry and employers, and I'm in that conversation about where the jobs will be in the next 5 to 10 years, it's important for you to know as you work with these incredible organizations, as you prepare to engage in your next phase of your life, how you need to start to begin to build your skills necessary to propel you into that next phase of your life. And more importantly, jobs, well-paid jobs that are going to help you and our communities, our state, and our country define what the economy is going to look like. And so that's the lens and the perspective I'll share with you this morning. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kevin Mayland. I'm a juvenile program worker. Been there for 15 years. I'm delighted to be here to talk to the youth today. I've been dealing with children and youth since 15 years now at the Rhode Island Training School. I was asked by Rob to attend this panel, and he coaches my son, so I couldn't say no. I'm just getting my feet wet, so I graduated from Johnson & Wales in criminal justice. Also graduated from Roger Williams, and I have a lot to say about Roger Williams. Hope High too, so I'm a native Rhode Island. Thank you.
I project, so I'm going to put this too close. Can you hear me? Great. First of all, it's glad to be here with Kimberly. My name is Kimberly Zuzwa. I am the Managing Director of Professional Services for COSBOC, which stands for the Coalition of Schools Educating Boys of Color. The organization is the only organization nationally focused on the positive trajectory and affirmative approach to working with young men and young boys of color. We are a network of school leaders. We have particular standards that have been assessed and developed by subject matters and experts in the field as to how to best work with our young men of color in an educational setting. So we really focus in working with developing professionally education leaders. I am here because this is a passion of mine. I've always had the feeling and thoroughly believe that our young men, you all are sleeping giants. There are skills, there are a number of things that are existing within our society that prevents you from really realizing who you are and what you can be in this world. And the organization upon which I represent, we are addressed at working with those systems to break those down. I also have two young men, my sons, that are 15 and 17 years of age, of which we have gone the gamut from coming to private school into the public schools and have seen where there's been a huge, not just discrepancy, but in inequalities in all three of those education sectors. And so it is my passion to be in this place, be able to support those young men who may not have those particular support structures that have been offered and awarded to my children.
Good morning. My name is Domingo Morel. I am a graduate of Central High School. I am a political scientist, and I'll be teaching public policy at the University of Massachusetts, Boston, starting this September. So we all bring different perspectives to this panel. Mine will probably be a little bit more towards the public policy side of things. I'm also the co-founder of the Latino Policy Institute at Roger Williams University. What brings me here, the kind of things that I'm interested in. So before returning back to school to earn my PhD, I worked in higher ed for 11 years at Rhode Island College and the University of Rhode Island. I recruited students, what we call students from disadvantaged backgrounds, which is basically everybody in this room right here, to attend special programs like the Town Development Program and URI and the PEP program at Rhode Island College. And one of the things when I went to recruit students in high school to offer them the opportunity to come to college, we realized that starting to talk to them while they're in high school was already too late for too many of them, that the issue was really at the middle school level. So this is some of the things that kind of motivate me to try to do this line of work.
So on the first panel, we sort of had the landscape laid out for us, right? We talked about some of the issues, some of the concerns around some of the issues. And so we wondered if you all on the panel could maybe talk about what you see in relation to what was discussed in the first panel is a way forward, taking those things into consideration.
Can you repeat the best question? I wasn't paying attention, I'm sorry. Hey, look, I'm a real young person up here high. I'm actually going to be talking to the young people, so adults. I'm sorry if I throw a couple slang words in there, because that's just how I talk. So, can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, we wondered if you could, the panel could respond to the issues and the topics raised by the first panel in looking forward and going forward.
Sure, I think a lot of, so the main issue that stood out to me in the first panel was, like I said when I spoke up and talked, was accountability. I think a lot of young teachers or even older teachers, they don't really invest in the student. And we can blame it on the educational system, we can blame it on teaching to the test and so on and so forth, but to me it's about the individual. And I think the teachers need to realize what they signed up for. You signed up to educate. And education goes way past 2:30, 3 o'clock. So we really need those teachers, and not here to vilify teachers at all, but we really need those teachers to invest in these young people on a cultural base first. Because if you can't reach them culturally, I don't care what books you throw at them, they're going to throw them back. So you need to really invest in these young people, and I would say the first step right now in this day and time is hip-hop culture. How many of you out there like hip hop? Okay, so we're talking 50% of the room. If you're a teacher and you know nothing about hip hop, you know nothing about hip hop culture, you're gonna have a bad school year.
Oh, thank you. I'd like to kind of follow up with that. As he's talking to the young men, I'd like to speak to the school leaders that are out there. It is very important to have that cultural piece, and it's being able to be equipped with that and knowing how to. In addition, is how do you engage and create and develop a relationship with your students, and also what is your belief strategy? Do you believe that these young men can succeed? Also, is helping you to identify. I know we talked about the work that we do with COSPOC. It's helping. What are the internal stereotypes that you may have as an educator that you may unknowingly, put forth to your constituency when you're teaching? Because they see that. You may not identify that or see that, but they will be able to feel that and not feel comfortable in your classroom setting. And then it goes past the classroom and begin to look at what is the school's culture and environment around cultural responsive pedagogy and teaching, and what is the leadership's philosophy on it, because it has to start from the leadership. So therefore, within the culture of the school and down into the classroom, it's a holistic approach to when you're working with them.
Thank you. Sister Davis, I think you were going to reach for the mic a second.
A couple of things that really stood out to me was the conversation about the culture of the institution. And one of the things that I think is very important, particularly if you're going to be doing education in urban settings, is that you need to create the climate of scholarship. And a lot of our schools today, particularly our public schools, do not do that. I'm fortunate to sit on the board of a Catholic school in Boston, and it's predominantly students of color that attend the school from preschool up to 8th grade. And as soon as a 3-year-old walks in that door, they are told that they are a scholar from the beginning. So you can go up to a 3-year-old and say, what college are you going to? Not if you're going to college. They are taught from the beginning, what college are you going to? And because they were in partnership with schools in the city of Boston, they will name, I'm going to BU, I'm going to Emmanuel, I'm going to Simmons. They know the colleges in the city. The other part of that is, what does the curriculum look like? What does the textbook look like? Every book in that school has a brown face on it. The principal, a white woman, has been very clear that educating students of color is to educate them to see themselves in the most positive light. I went through every classroom when I was asked to be on that board, from, again, preschool up to 8th grade. Writers, artists, decor, looks like the students in that school, regardless of what the teachers look like. And so I think that's very important that the school systems need to lead with making sure that the environments are of scholarship, not trying to get students to come in, get them out, whether they understand the content or not, and develop the curriculum that is culturally relevant to that institution.
So what really spoke and connected to me was a remark made by the young grasshopper that you referred to earlier, where the words that he used were, hands-on experience. And so it's critical that we begin to engage you, our young people, in the academic rigor that should exist in the classroom, but really connected to relevant real-world opportunities. I had the privilege of participating in a number of high schools across the state, let's say Hope High School, for instance, where I go in and I talk about entrepreneurship, but in a real way. So when we talk about business plans and marketing plans, it's in a way that really connects to our young people. So it's, how do you build a record label? How much is it going to cost to create, or produce a music video? But making it so that it connects to what your experiences are like. And in my introduction, I talked about, that hustle, because you need to continue to be authentic. Just because we talk about this, the world that we live in, and sometimes you have to straddle the fence depending on the audience that you speak to. It doesn't mean that you lose who you are in the process. I'm a proud Rhode Islander, born and raised in Pawtucket. I like to think that I have a little hustle. You know, that when I go into meetings, my version of a hustle could be someone else's definition of closing the deal. I just think about it differently. You know, so you need to take that ability to take those street smarts, take that, whatever it is that we want to call it, you know, in our own backyards, but transition it into this entrepreneurial spirit, you know, that we, and I'll speak on behalf of Roger Williams University, have an obligation to connect and commit to our young folks and to our schools to get out there early on to begin to create affinity for different industries. You know, get you engaged in the growing industries that are going to create the jobs. So, you know, young people talk about computer graphics, web design, how artistic you are, but do you know what we're offering at the university? What options are there for you? When was the last time you visited a college campus? So we as a university, as an institution, there's amazing human capital. We need to invest in people. You know, oftentimes these large private institutions invest in marketing ads, these big billboards on the highway that cost thousands upon thousands of dollars. You look at their marketing budgets. But what if they redirected some of that money to people, to humans, where you can see a direct return on the investment? So I think we need to take our collective efforts and go back to President Obama's State of the Union address, which the primary theme back in January was, how do we support our young boys of color? You know, he launched My Brother's Keeper initiative, and I think we need to, as a community, come together to figure out how collectively we're going to harness the amazing talent that we have in this room.
Thank you. Somebody else? Go ahead.
Just to piggyback on what she said, without the being at the juvenile training school, there needs to be more hands-on with a lot of the men of color, young boys of color. Everybody's not going to be a brain surgeon or an engineer, so there needs to be some other options for these young men. The title is Rhode Island Training School, but I don't really see a lot of the training. You know, the educational piece is not what we would want it to be. And that's just coming from a correction officer. I think that there should be more given to these residents while they're out there. So once they're released, they can either transition to a secondary education or into some type of workforce that would put money in their pockets, because that's what everybody wants. I think that's like the goal as a juvenile or as a young adult coming up, to have money in your pocket. And you want that by any means. You know, if it's educational, you're going to get the money. It's about money. So if we're not training these young men, or we're not educating these young men, they're going to get the money. You know, it's not going to be by, because they know they can't eat the books. They can't wear the books. So we have to get them at an early age and let them know that, through education, if that's what they're capable of doing, because we have to know what we're working with. We can't just, have a kid that, at the training school, we'll take a kid. If he's not functioning well in a classroom, then we'll have him do some type of work around the mom or around the building, and these kids excel. Less fights, less negative interaction with the other residents, the teachers, the staff, because it's giving them something to do. Some of them aren't, they're just not at that level where they can maintain in the classroom with other residents. The bullying, the peer pressure and all that, that's rampant nowadays. So we have to really understand what we're working with, and like Kobe said earlier, we have to be accountable too. We can't just leave them in the corner and say, hey, just look at this book. And, you know, it'll be all right. You'll be out here in a couple months. The next day we'll see them in the paper, or they're walking around the streets begging for money, or they're going to rob you. So we need to come up with a pretty good plan for this. You know, this is just because there's, you know, these kids aren't being spoken about. These kids exist. These kids are out there. You can take a tour to the training school right now and see these kids. And, you know, some of them have GEDs. I mean, it's questionable, but some of them have GEDs. So we have to deal with.
Adriana, you raised this notion of hustle, having a hustle. And you seem to hustle quite well.
Little swag.
Yeah, a little swag. And we think about this, we talk about education, but I mean, a Wall Street banker has a hustle. You know, Wall Street is a big hustle. So, you know, there's a way in which the hustle isn't just about the street. You know, America has a hustle. So, with that, I'm going to put another question out to the panel now. What functions should policymakers play in addressing the social, economic, and social-emotional issues concerning young boys of color?
Do you mind if I start the conversation and then with my
Perfect.
So, when I have the opportunity to represent us at the table, typically I'm one of the only women in the room. I'm a woman of color. I don't come packaged like the other traditional, you know, corporate women. And it's uncomfortable. They don't know what to do with us, particularly when you open your mouth and you sound somewhat articulate. I was just having this discussion with my colleagues at the table, and it's okay. And I think we have to pull folks into the room and make them really uncomfortable. Because to the point and the theme of today's event is making the invisible visible. You have to raise the level of the conversation and get deep. We got to get really deep, and it's important we're having this conversation, and everyone that is here is obviously committed, but where's everybody else? You know, where are the folks that are making the policy? Where are the folks that are making decisions on our behalf without really knowing what on our behalf means? You know, so I just, I subscribe to the philosophy that, you know, if you've come from a world of privilege, own it, but take that lens off when you come into our community. You know, you could have the best of intentions, but those intentions come off as charitable. And we're not charity, folks. We're an investment. And so if people don't finally come to grips with what our demographics are starting to look like, and the browning and, you know, the browns and blacks, and our numbers and what they represent in terms of our nation's growth, and the workforce and what the workforce is going to look like, there's going to be a huge disparity between where the jobs are going to be and what the skills are for the folks that need to connect with those jobs. So who's going to take care of the people that are now in the positions of power who are making decisions on our behalf when they retire? If there's no one to help the economy because our people have not been connected or skilled in such a way to get into those jobs, then what are they going to say? Oh, I wish I had invested, you know, or I wish I had done something different. So I don't know that that completely answers your question, but you know, it's important that these conversations continue to take shape, but we have an obligation to bring people into the room that oftentimes don't like to feel uncomfortable.
Thank you. So someone else again, role of policymakers.
Yeah, so I could I guess start that part of the conversation. I think one of the most important things to understand, at least from my point of view, is that, you know, we often tend to use the word the system, right? And what I would like for us to really think about is think about it as systems versus then a system. When you think of systems, then you could begin to address specific issues. At the end of the day, they're all part of a bigger system, of course, but if we are interested in addressing issues, we need to them as particular systems. And so when Marco, you asked earlier during the first panel, what the incentive is for people, or something to this effect, for our kids to graduate. Well, there is an incentive, there is a number of systems in place that benefit from our kids not graduating from school.
Absolutely.
Right? So for every system, there is a winner and a loser. And so then, you know, as a researcher, as a social scientist, we need to ask ourselves a question: who wins when our kids lose? And when we understand that question, then we can step back and start to analyze the system a little bit, or systems, I should say, a little bit better. That also helps us understand your point, Adriana, why policymakers are not here in the building, right? Because there is an incentive, there is a lot of wins for those who don't care about the needs of these students, that the issues that we have with our students here today. And so I think any discussion about policy and policy making needs to come from that point of view of how is it that we begin to address the specific issues that our students are facing. So today we've heard about increasing faculty of color. We've heard about curriculum issues. We've heard about incarceration, the school to jail, prison pipeline. These are all specific issues that have specific remedies. And so if we're going to start a policy discussion, I think that's the way to start.
Go ahead, go.
First of all, speaking of policy, you know, I'm really not the guy to do this because I usually don't recognize politicians. But I do like this man, and I'm going to recognize Council President Michael Solomon. Council President Michael Solomon is here. He's a policymaker. Running for mayor this upcoming election. How do I talk to policymakers about social, emotional development for our young people? I give it to them real simple and raw. I say, do you want to deal with the wolves? And a lot of them look at me like, what is he talking about? Like there he goes with that slang stuff again. The wolves are what happens when young people are not given the correct opportunities. Do you want to walk down the street and come face to face with one of these wolves? You really don't. You don't want to be in a dark alley with one of these wolves. And people from the streets know exactly what I'm talking about. So when I speak to them, I like to let them know we have to teach these young people the difference between giving them programs that boost their self-esteem or programs that boost self-empowerment. Self-esteem to me is a pat on the back, giving them some little programs and grants that get them some ice cream or, you know, $50 certificate and so on and so forth. Those things are pats on the back. I disagree with all those little grant programs. I want programs of self-empowerment because when the sneakers are gone and the J's get all dirty and the true religions are all dusty and they're no longer good, your self-esteem is gone too because your swag is gone.
What does a program of self-empowerment look like? And you know, and not just for you, but for some of the other folk on the panel, like that, we wanna start to actually name some of this stuff, right? Let's go ahead and say this. You know, we allude to it, so when we say systems, and let's say it, like, because we gonna say it here.
Yeah, I'm getting that.
Put somebody down and going home.
I went the slow route, but I'll skip to the program. One of the programs that I have myself personally, Project Night Vision, is a program to develop young wolves into young men with self-empowerment. Because after hours, when it's dark out there, when people are walking the streets, I like to deal with those kids. All right, and that's most of you in this room right here. How many of you hang out at night? How many of you hang out after dark? Most of them. They need structure. So when they come to programs like mine that operate from 5 to 10 or however long the kids keep me there, Project Night Vision is a program that deals with the development of kids that have people on this panel that will volunteer and help mentor and shape and give these kids opportunities to college, jobs, and better opportunities. So yeah, I'm not going to go on, but if anybody wants to talk about different programs like that, we can do it also on the side. I'll let other people speak.
All right.
To follow up with that, if you're talking about particular programs, the Coast Guard organization oversees and manages a program called the Sankofa 444 program, where you have 44 young men, each with 2 facilitators and a mentor. That program is actually located in Philadelphia. We are working with 8 of the Philadelphia public schools. And we look to bring in and identify young men who have been adjudicated, who are having, issues of being in the regular traditional classroom setting. And it's a high-touch model. And what it brings in history. It engages them to their past to bring to the future. We work very closely with the teachers and leaders within the schools because it is also an academic approach as well. The model starts out where they meet together in the morning. They start the day out. They give recognition to their ancestors. They talk about the plan for the day to help them to keep on course. Then the second time of the day, they come together around that lunchtime period, and they're talking about what's happening in their classes. They're watching and seeing things of enrichment and doing things, for example, this capoeira that they are learning the history behind it. Then at the end of the day, they end the day as coming together to talk about what they have learned, what their mission is in life, who they are as young men of color, African American, Latina, Asian, Pacific Islander, and then again come back again the next day. What we have seen within this program, that 90% of all of our men who have come through that program have graduated with a high school diploma and have been accepted into colleges. And so we are looking now to see how we can bring that into the Boston area because it's been pretty much succinct. So now we're in the process of growth, and there has been huge accolades for the program, and there's been interest. And so that's what we're wanting to do. We take a very non-traditional approach.
From a higher ed perspective, there are several programs that around the country that really speak to supporting men of color, not only in the recruitment of men of color into colleges and universities, but the retention and graduation rate. So, for example, the University of Georgia has started a African American male initiative that has partnered with the school systems there from K through 12. So looking at a little bit of policy development there, truly not only say we want them to come to our system of education in Georgia, but how do we support them throughout the way? And part of that is mentorship programs, giving men of color, particularly black men, the space they need to do whatever it is that black men need to do, converse, nothing formal, we're gonna feed you, get in a room, put you in a room with professional black men as well, so you can see where your life could be if you progress to finish your education. The University of Pennsylvania, actually no, Penn State. Penn State has a doctorate program for men of color. It's very selective, where they take you in at a master's level, so you have to complete your bachelor's, but they surround you with other black men with PhDs. They also pay for it. Penn State is not cheap. So if you're looking for money for grad school, those are the programs that you want to get into. So they not only pay for your graduate education for the time that you're there to get your PhD, but they surround you and match you up with another black man that has a PhD, so he can show you how to do that, how to navigate the graduate school system, how to navigate doing your dissertation and all that other stuff. So there are programs out there that really lend themselves to bringing men together and empowering them to do their best work. Some of them are more heavily funded than others, but they're there.
I just want to give a major shout out to, again, the folks that are responsible for this event today. Certainly, we've got Youth Build, Year Up, Building Futures are also other organizations that empower young people, particularly men, when we talk about apprenticeship programs. But there's just a quick point that I want to make about a subject matter we haven't gotten to yet, but that's the safety net of resources that really is required in order for our young folks, particularly our men of color, to be successful. And, when we talk about mental health, so, some of our young folks are dealing with some pretty heavy stuff. We heard some of those stories during the first panel. And when we talk about the safety net of services, what do we do about those instances of violence that our young men of color have been exposed to growing up? What do we do about those situations where, the young men are, and young women, but young men are coming from single-parent households. We're dealing with some major poverty issues, the whole socioeconomic and cultural dynamic. So when we talk about the work that we're doing, it has to be thought about in terms, very thoughtful and deliberately thought about, an intentional collaboration between public, private, foundations, industry. Everybody has a vested interest, but we have to think about all of the layers and levels of support in that construction of that safety net to make sure that our young men of color don't fail. So yes, there's academics, yes, there's the parental engagement, yes, it's the people in the classroom that have to identify and empathize and recognize the baggage that our kids come to school with. But again, there's got to be a health and wellness aspect to it that addresses where some of the behaviors are coming from. You can't put a Band-Aid and it's not systematic. You have to really diagnose where it's coming from and connect with those community-based organizations or health resources that can act as professionals and experts to provide that outlet to break through some of those behavioral and anger issues that are rooted, in a very, very deep place. So I just wanted to throw that out there. From a health perspective, we have to make our communities mentally, physically healthy in order to create these thriving opportunities of success.
Thank you. We talked about policymakers, the role of policymakers, and I was hoping that maybe we could talk more directly about the role of the Department of Education, right here in this state. What role does the Department of Ed play in addressing some of these academic issues with young men of color?
So, I think the most important thing that we, in my view, to try to understand the role that RIDE can play is, you've been hearing it, this panel, you heard it, the last panel, you heard it from individuals in the audience, is that this idea of school being school is really it's not the right way to think about it. We really need to think about schools as community centers, right? Where you have, from the morning, as Rob was saying, the role that Youth Build plays, having breakfast for students, all the way to the evening to a type of program that Kobe Dennis is running, right? Our schools need to be that type of community center. And so if we're engaging RIDE in a discussion about what our boys need, this is exactly it. We need an effort, and we know that RIDE can't do this by themselves. We need an effort that includes RIDE, it includes our community partners, it includes, like Adriana was saying, the business community, to provide a whole program for our students. And that means we need food for these kids. We need mental illness issues addressed with these students. We need their parents to have jobs. And once we think about it holistically, then that's how we begin to address these needs. If we try to say, well, RIDE, we need these students to read better, we need these students to do better math, we lost. We need them to be in the classroom. Like the brother was saying, he felt incarcerated. He felt, when you were at Roger Williams Middle School, you felt like animals. Well, the reason our kids feel like animals is because that is not a community center. It's an institution, and we need to transform from institutions to community centers.
That's right.
And so, that's one way that we can engage RIDE in a discussion about what needs to be done with our students.
Right. And we see that in the wealthier private schools here in the state and in anywhere, right? You go there, you go to a Moses Brown, a Wheeler, a Country Day, so on and so forth, and it's like, wow, okay, y'all got this over here, and y'all can do that, and y'all go there, and this is offered. It's like, okay, so this is like much more than a school. So that was powerful. Thank you. Somebody else want to speak to this notion, the role that the Department of Education can play in addressing this?
Well, just continuing what Domingo said. he's basically talking about the Rhode Island Training School. All they don't have is the educational piece. They eat breakfast together, they go to school together, they eat lunch together, they eat dinner together. They have social workers on ground, mental health help on grounds. They have everything that we're requiring this community facility to have. So, like the young man said, it's like being a caged animal. Well, this is the other alternative. The Rhode Island Training School is the last line before these kids are in the ACI, which has more, the criminal justice system has more men of color locked up than they do in college. So this seems like this is the route we're going.
Okay, somebody want
I also think there needs to be some accountability for the educators in these schools. Part of it is their training. Are they getting training on cultural competency while they're going through college, getting their education degrees? But is there follow-up training on the issues that students face, as professional development? So that's part of it. But the other part of it is, are we holding teachers accountable about how they treat their students in the classroom? Is there a system or mechanism that needs to be developed more strongly to hold people accountable? I have a nephew who was too smart for his own good, and they were ready to pipeline him to special ed because he was a behavioral issue. Well, he told his teacher at 5 years old, well, I already know this stuff on board, this is why I'm acting up, I told you this before. And so if my sister-in-law and my brother did not get involved in the school system and really, say we want this teacher held accountable for how she's treating my son because of her implicit bias about black males, nothing would have been done. And so the Department of Education, in my opinion, needs to lead in those efforts. Yes, it needs to come from parents, but if we're sending teachers in the classroom who are not equipped, they may be the best math teacher in the world, but if they're not equipped to check their biases, their discriminatory beliefs, their racism, and know how to deal with that in the classroom, if the Department of Ed doesn't, lead that effort, that's a problem. They're not equipped to teach our young people, and the problem will progress.
I think one of the things that should be addressed is a new way of directive when it comes to discipline, because there is a huge disproportionality of suspension when it comes to our young men of color as compared to others.
Yeah.
And looking at what is in place right now seems to kind of replicate the criminal system, to be specific. And then looking at what is the more holistic approach as to dealing with behavioral issues. Why is it that they're acting out? How do you involve your environment and your culture and dealing with that?
Personally, I speak at schools all over the state, actually, all over the country. And, I'll just throw out a few schools there. That's the middle school I teach at, and then I'll speak at a place like the Lincoln School for Girls, $50,000 a year to go to. But the difference is not the money. The difference is the allowance of the community to come in. I spoke one-on-one with Deborah Gist a couple of times, and what I continue to tell her is, until you continue to have those buzzers on the door, disallowing parents to come in and see what's going on, we're going to continue to have problems. When I go to these schools where it's $50,000, $60,000 a year, and there's leather couches, and there's no teachers in the cafeteria, I'm sure none of you have never seen that before. The kids have lunch, and there's not one faculty member in the cafeteria at all. Why? Because they trust the kids, and they eat and monitor themselves. Our kids can do that as well. They haven't been given the chance to do that. So my point being that is open the doors, let the community in, let Miss Jones up the street in, come in a nightgown, and grab her kid up by his shirt if he's not doing the right thing. That's the type of community we live in. That's the stuff we need to allow and monitor, and we will strive as a public school system. But until then, until we keep shutting the door out, it's going to continue to be us against them, and it's just not working. So I'm hoping that policymakers, and I'm hoping that School to Ride can see that they need to open the doors.
All right, thank you. Good.
So I share your concern. We need to come up with specific solutions. This is the reason why we're here today. And so there are two things that have continuously emerged in our discussion today, and that is the lack of faculty of color in the classrooms where our students are attending school, and this criminal system. And I think you called it like the police state earlier, or something to that effect. And so there are specific things that we can do about this. So the University of Rhode Island College, and other state colleges, their responsibility is to educate our residents of this state to become teachers and other things. So we need to organize with the powers that be, RIDE, the different institutions of higher education, our community groups, to increase an effort to get particularly our boys, to go on to college and become teachers. So that's one specific thing that we can do. And we have a program here that can teach us, lead the way with that. The other thing is the criminal system. One of the things that we know from the research is that our boys are going to be incarcerated for doing no more than a white kid from the suburbs is going to do, right? And they might not, the research is very clear that they're not committing crimes at any higher level rates, but they are getting incarcerated at higher level rates. So what can we do as a community to begin to address this? One of the major things the research also says, if you have males in the household, if you have males leading community organizations, they can be mediators, they can be mentors to address both sides of the issue. We've been focusing a lot on individual behavior, telling these young men, don't do this, don't do that. Obviously, that's one part of the equation. Having a male in the household helps with that. But the other part of having a male in the household, having a male leading a different organization, having males in the classrooms, is that male can also work with the police system in ways, the police officers, in ways that helps to mediate the problem before it escalates. So we have Kevin Maynard who can talk to Rob, say, Rob, your boy right here is getting in trouble. We need to address this issue. And we begin to mediate the situation before it escalates. And so having this presence that both, of course, accountability, of course, telling students you need to make the better decision, you need to choose A and not B. That's part of it. But the other part is that we can also be the mediators to prevent the situation from getting worse. And so those are different systemic things that we can do to address these issues.
Kevin, I would like to maybe start with you on this next question, and then we can open it out more to the panel. How can our educational agencies and the justice system partner to ensure that these young men are successful? And I mean, that literally builds right off of Domingo's last statement, right? We've been talking about policymakers, Department of Ed, but since our students are interfacing and engaging with the criminal justice system at younger ages, and for sometimes even less crimes than white students, there's this very much this engagement with the criminal justice system. So what role does that play in, is it part of the problem? Is it part of the solution? Is it neither? I mean, as someone who works directly in a facility, dealing with these young folk, what can you say to that?
I think from a correction standpoint, I can only speak on the residents that, come through and, are part of that educational piece out there. But what, myself and other JPWs would like to see, being that, we're considered juvenile program workers, would like to see if a resident is going to be there for a youth being whatever color, whoever's there. We have the majority of young black males, but if we're going to have them for a certain amount of time, we would like for it to be a requirement for them to finish some type of education piece. So when they're released or given the opportunity to go back to their community, they go back with a sense of having something behind them, be it a trade or just step into a secondary education position. I think that we don't give them anything. They go back to their community. They have nothing to show for being incarcerated. I mean, like with what Domingo was saying, if you turn that facility and this is just, you know, a fantasy, but if you turn that facility into a charter school or a school where we're bringing in top-notch education, it would be a $50,000 school for a student, just because of the amenities it has. You know, they have everything. You know, you have everything. So now if you have a kid, and what's really quiet is that we have their undivided attention. There's no entity coming in. There's no, well, I don't feel like going to school today, or I'm not going to show up to work today. You're there. So it's a requirement for you to do this. And this is the way, you know, for residents or for young black males that have, that you know, has been incarcerated, for them to get in the right position to get to where they need to be.
You know, before somebody else on the panel speaks, I've heard you seemingly allude to several times that the training school seems to be very well funded and resourced. And maybe this is different from a school because you actually have folk there 24 hours out of the day.
Yes.
But I'm wondering if maybe I can tag on to that question for the rest of the panel is, again, what role does the justice system play? And could we imagine that our schools could be likewise resourced?
Well, I would, if I had to mirror image the schools, I would say there would have to be more of a person that these children can identify with in school. Like they used to have their, I guess, resource police or something in school where police would be in there and everything. Well, I don't know if they have that anymore, but you know, using the juvenile program workers in a sense to be in these schools. You know, people of color, you know, diverse field. Maybe this is a way, like Domingo said, for myself or anybody else to get to Rob or get to someone else and say, look, this kid, he's acting up, he needs this, or maybe we need to do this with him. You know, before it got to him going to the Providence training school, before it got to him being put in the back of a police car for acting out in school, or suspension, or being expelled or something like that. So I think that's probably where the justice system could probably be implemented into the school system. Okay.
So I recognize that, you know, our schools are facing, you know, severe budget constraints, and there's a conversation about, you know, the capital improvement and the improvement to the facility in and of itself, you know. So how old are the buildings? You know, with the leaking roof and the heating system doesn't work. So it's that versus, you know, the curriculum and the investment that we need to make in the curriculum, and how much do we pay our teachers. But again, when we look outside of that nucleus, again, that's where I think that we as vested folks in the community and as experts in different fields can be a resource to those school districts. I mean, we can come in and assist the curriculum development. We can come in as guest speakers. If you don't know, you know, that those opportunities are harnessed as well as they should be. You know, the sense that there's a chance to develop these mentor-protege scenarios. You've got small businesses who I think would be willing and receptive to have conversations with folks, let's say from the training school or the judicial system, to set up some sort of, you know, pathway for these young men if they're assured that there's a curriculum that's being built, or some of the kids are being taught a trade or a skill in the training school, that there is something waiting for them when they come out in the form of an apprenticeship or an internship. But the conversation, people have to ask. If you don't ask or invite people to the conversation, it's not going to happen.
But Adriana, if I might, just, and someone else on the panel said this, and in my organizing work in the community, I hear some of these young men say, I did take a trade in the training school. I did take a trade in the ACI, right? I learned to cut hair, I was a barber, and then when I got out, the state wouldn't allow me to get a license. And so I learned the trade, I learned this skill, whatever it is, and now I want to go and get a job and be gainfully employed, and the state says, well, no, because you were a felon, so such and such, we can't issue you a license. So they can't even do the thing that they've been trained to do. So again, you know, we have this.
I get it. So from a regulatory perspective, you know, and these are things that are being imposed on, and it's primarily affecting our community. These are lawmakers that don't understand the dynamics and makeup of what happens to our young folks and mistakes that are made. So when the kids come to us and they share those challenges, again, I think it's a call of action. We as a community need to come together and challenge, let's say, the business regulatory system. We need to have a conversation with the governor. We need to, as a community, you know, power is in the numbers. But sometimes we can be very territorial. You know, we might not want to invite other people in the conversation because we want to own it. We want to do it. And I don't think that we have that option anymore. We need to be a lot more inclusive in our approach. And we need to identify at that higher state level. Remember, we vote for these people, you know, and that's another opportunity to have a conversation at another time about that civic engagement. These are the people that we are voting into office, you know, so we need to make sure that those people understand how they need to help us turn those challenges into opportunities.
All right. Would you say something?
Yes, just go ahead. One quick point. So this is a perfect example of why politics is so important. I think as a community we try to de-emphasize, we try to discourage our young people from getting involved with politics. The reason why mostly is because we think of politics as going to vote and that is it. But politics is a lot bigger than that. So now you have a specific issue. You have students who got their trade, got their certificate for a trade to be a barber, can't get licensed because the state of Rhode Island, whatever regulatory process, does not allow them to do that. So then we have to help the young people organize around that specific issue. I don't know where it is that we start right now with this particular topic, but together we will be able to figure it out. We'll know who is responsible for it at the state legislature. Is it a city issue? Is it a statewide issue? We need to talk about this so that we develop a plan, a political plan for addressing a very specific issue. And so this is why I was saying early on about identifying as systems, not a system. That way we identify the specific issue, organize politically, and address, again, that particular issue. And I think that's one that we can all, you know, rally around. Right. That one seemingly small thing, but it's so big and so significant for so many.
Right. I just want to say to young people that, you know, start to get a little tired. All the young people, put your hands in the air. Put your hands in the air, young folks. If you think you're young, put your hands in the air. I don't care. Just wave them like you just don't care. This is how we used to party back in the day. Come on, wave your hands. That's just a little technique. Y'all gotta wake up, man. I know this is tough, but this is something you're gonna have to go through. These panel discussions, I see people I see everything. Passing notes, texting, talking, all that. All right? That comes from when a bunch of grown people up here talking to you about stuff you probably don't know what we're talking about. But your job is to just try to hold on and grasp. I mean, we're gonna get to the question and answer session, so I hope you're writing notes down. I hope that's what it was. Those notes they were passing over there. I hope
we actually going to the question Q&A like right now.
Writing down questions. They're like, why you put me on blast? But I'm here for the young people, so I want you guys to be engaged. So that's it.
All right. So without further ado, again, we want to hear. This is the time to raise your voice. It's your powerful weapon. It don't cost you anything. Say something.
Thank you. My name is Billy Ray Martin. I'm a youth build student. And there's a handful of things that I wanted to talk about throughout this discussion that I thought were kind of strange. So for one, we kind of avoided the main topic. The main topic was to see what we could do to prevent students entering high schools destined as failures. We were supposed to address the issues in middle school, and we didn't really get to that. You know, we had a lot of people talking about how good their programs are, and that's probably true. You guys probably have some awesome programs, but we need more immediate effects to the children that are entering these middle schools. What I think we need to work on is a phrase I heard a lot: as a community. This is the motto or the message. This is the logo of what Youth Build Providence is, isn't it? This is what we do. This is what we are. But this philosophy isn't taught in a lot of normal schools, which is why there's confusion. In the media, African Americans, Hispanics, are viewed as less, and that's sad, because I know my best friends are very intelligent African American, Hispanic, Asian, Latino, white. I don't see this as a black and white issue, because I grew up in the same situations as everyone in this room, and I'm as white as a sheet of paper. You know, diversity is not explained by what's on the flesh, because we all bleed the same color. We all come out the same color, red. And that's what we are. There is no difference. And what I think Youth Build does, and what needs to be carried out throughout the rest of the schools, is the sense of unity, the sense of union and organization that allows you to come together and actually make a point and be able to do something and become something much better than just, you know, another statistic that got thrown into jail.
All right, let's let the panel pick up right there. Would someone on the panel like to, or someone else in the audience like to address this young man's statements?
I actually just want to challenge you a little bit on your statement regarding race. You know, like Domingo talked about, we live in systems. And unfortunately, we live in systems that perpetuate racial divide. And if we do not remember and understand our history about that, and recognize what part as a community, because we all have to do it, if we don't recognize that we all have a part in breaking that down, then we can't get to where you want to go. But part of that is that we don't talk about race in the same way. I cannot tell you the number of college students, black, white, Latino, Asian, who's, to me, the race is just not an issue. I just love everybody. And I'm looking at them like, why are you sitting in an African American history class then? Why is there a separate African American history class if race does not matter? And so we cannot forget that about who we are as a society and the system that we live in. What we need to do is teach people how to have those conversations so it doesn't turn into a debate. Because when it turns into a debate, then we can't do what you and I are doing right now. I can disagree with you, but that doesn't mean that I can't say something that you will hear, think about, and reflect upon at a later time. So we have to be mindful of it, because how race plays out in low-income educational settings is going to affect you even though you are probably low-income yourself than it does a brown person. Because there are privileges that you have by the virtue of being a white male in this country. You are favored based upon those characteristics. So I just want you to think about that, because those are important. We have to keep that in mind. Not that it has to be a divisive thing, but we can't forget it.
I'd like to add to that is that, and I totally 100% agree, and just to take it to the next level, understanding that whatever past you have come from, you can get your hair cut, throw on a three-piece suit, you know, walk the walk, go into a corporate room, go into an interview, be like, they would never know your history. I have any type of stereotypical piece about you just by looking at you. Compared to if there was a young man of color to do the same thing automatically just by how he looks. Even though he throws on that suit, have a nice haircut, that still stands out because our system from that point of professionality is still there. That still exists, that racism.
Thank you. Real quickly, and then we're going to...
Sure. But there's some validity to what you're saying, and your struggle as a white man, white young man, who still has to attend this program because you have some issues, you dropped out of school, whatever. Those are real reasons. And so we need to understand that there are a lot of white people that are struggling out there, and these programs that we're talking about can benefit them as well. What I think that the panel is trying to suggest here is that there are some specific issues, and your friend, your best friend who happens to be African American or Latino is more likely to be incarcerated for the things that you and he are doing than you are. And that's not an attack on you. That's what we need to address as, again, systems. But that's not to delegitimize your real situation, your real concern, and your real needs to benefit from the program that we all think are beneficial to our students of color here.
All right, go ahead. I think going into systems, talking about systems, the system we are operating within is a capitalistic system. Right. And the reality is that class is a huge issue. However, race trumps class. Gender trumps class. As a woman, you're going to make 75 cents per dollar. As a person of color, you're going to make a lot less. My concern is that in holding accountability, a lot of times we're divide and conquer, whether we're divide and conquer teachers versus parents, youth, people of color versus white, poor people. But the reality is that, as the gentleman from the Training Institute alluded to, the fact that on average, we pay a lot more money after a fire stops. And it costs a lot less to put a fire extinguisher in a room and put a battery in it than it does to go to a house that's burning down. And the reality is we have all these resources that are extended for the reasons that the gentleman at the end was talking about. There's a policy. Who's winning when we go to prison? They build prison beds on average on the 3rd grade reading levels. 3rd grade reading levels predict what prison beds they're going to build at 18 years old. And when that person is 18 years old, after 12 years in the middle schools and whatever schools they were in, $15,000 per year on average is spent on our students. And the teachers, the young students that were out there were talking about the things that are needed: smaller classes, hands-on things. Teachers have 30 plus students in a classroom. The students are dealing with a lot of issues. They don't have resources in the school. They don't have therapists in the school. They don't have the resources to hire people. So we're looking at the schools but the schools ain't have no money to do it. So the issue is, why isn't there money like there is money for the prison? On average, in Dartmouth House Correction, they spend about $80,000 a year to $100,000 a year to incarcerate somebody. That's a Brown University education with a brand new car each year. You know what I'm saying? So if we can afford to do that, and we got 2 million men, African American men in prison right now. There's more African American men and poor whites in prison right now than ever was in slavery. And they have free labor, and somebody's making money off of it. So if we really want to address and create change, we have to start at the system. And part of the problem is that the system is benefiting profit over people. There's more people that are living in poor conditions, in poor schools right now, that have not getting the resources they deserve, and our tax money, $200 million to send a shuttle to the Mars the other day. President Obama just went to Europe and said that he's going to spend $1 billion to put soldiers in Europe right now. We got $100,000 per each inmate. And there's 2 million inmates of color, of male, that's just male of color, never mind whites and other races and females. All that money could be better spent putting fire extinguishers in the households, putting, the prevention. It costs a lot less to brush your teeth and floss than to go to the doctor to get your teeth removed. You know what I mean? So we need to really organize and start looking at the system and looking at how to put pressure so that these people that are in office are actually funding things that are benefiting our community.
Hi, my name is Dwayne Brown. I'm a life skills coach at Youth Build Bedford. I'm pretty much like you are, sir, over there at the end, because sometimes I say some things and people don't like the way I say it, but it's the truth. I come from the trenches. I was just like you, struggling to get ahead, did a lot of time in prison, came out of prison, and I had to readjust myself. She calls it swagger, I call it flipping. We have different words for different meanings. I had to flip my life around. I had to flip my mentality around. I had to flip everything that I went in with prison and came back out here. I didn't have no jobs, like the young man up there was saying. There was no jobs. There's no re-entry into the community. You're not going to get any of that. You're not going to get none of that. My main point, and I got to go here with it, are the fathers. The fathers are the main responsibility for the family. The father is the front line of defense for the family. You take away the father, the family is subject to anything and everything, which goes the kids. Our young men don't have positive role models because their fathers are what? In prison, strung on dope, or whatever. Or just gone because they're just gone. But here's the hit. And I want every man in here to do this. Just because you have no relationship with your father today, think about it this way. Father's Day is Sunday. Give him a call. Just give him a call. Just to let him know you're still there. Just to let him know that there's an open door where you can rebuild that relationship. Because you're off balance. Without a mother and a father, you're off balance. You need them both. And the father has not been in the picture. Don't X him out the picture, make way for him to come back into the picture. So you can get the nourishment that you really need. Because a woman can't teach a man to be a man. No way. She can bring you to a certain point, but check this out. The father has to be there. And you, if you have children, you have to be a father to your child. You have to be. Because if you don't, it's going to fall right back into the pitfalls that you or I have fell in on before. So you're not exempt from this at all. If you got kids running around, be on your job. Or they end up like us. These are my men right here. I passed out some work assignment on the Willie Lynch letter. If any of you know anything about the Willie Lynch letter, you'll understand that the systems or the system was against you from the day you were born. From the very day you were born. You need to know how they did it and why they did it. Check out the Lynch letters. And then you'll begin to understand some things. Then you'll begin to realize that this is not a game. This has been organized and this has been put into action by systems. And when we talk about systems, the first thing men of color think about is the criminal system. Why do we gotta be in the criminal system? Why do we gotta be in the criminal system? But check this out. We're in the criminal system. And that's why it's filled with us. I've been there. I've done 13 years there in Walpole. I've done it. I grew up off the streets of Boston, Mass. I did all that, but my swagger, I flipped it, and I became a youth minister. I became a life skills coach. I became an outreach worker. I was a skater.
Right. Church. Getting the word.
My name's Alex, bro. I'm from Boston, born and raised, but part of New Build, Bedford. One thing I want to say is I feel like what he was saying, we need to get down to the problem and the issue and find out what's the problem with these people and what's going on. Like, one thing that really spoke to me was Freedom Riders.
What, talk about that. What was Freedom Riders, young brother?
Well, Freedom Riders is the way everybody speaks about how, you know, you look to a teacher that's coming from where you're coming from, and it'll make you feel like, okay, that will make me better myself. But the reality of it is education will make you better yourself.
Mhm.
Not only that, there's a lot more things to it. It took a white lady, and I don't want to say that to sound wrong, but it took only her to open everybody else's eyes in ways of showing what you guys are out here thinking is a big issue and is a big war between what y'all doing. But the big issue really is you guys are nothing compared to what, if you guys know who Hitler is, what happened to the Jews, and there's way more things than to what we think about is the issue. And,
You know what? I'm sorry, brother. I thought you said Freedom Riders. You said Freedom Writers, the film.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sorry, go ahead.
And not only that, I'm 23. I look young. I know that. But I also have to address that us as adults, we have to get to the youth. Not just teachers, not just COs, you know, not all that. It's everybody and adults. We have to address the problem, get to the youth, get more involved with it, and make better outcomes out of it. That's what I think.
Hold on 1 second. I just want to respond to what the young man said, because it struck a chord with me. When I was in the 6th grade, I had a fabulous teacher, white woman, Jewish, and one of the biggest reasons why I remember her and how she treated me was, one, she pronounced my name correctly on the first day of school, but that she, like the teacher in Freedom Riders, really told me that I was capable of doing more and doing better, and then showed me how to do it. So, one of the questions that we were, sent was, how does teacher expectations impact or, student success? It's huge. It's very huge. So if you have one person in your life, whoever that is, that not only says, I believe that you are capable of doing more, capable of reaching the highest potential, but then teaching you how to do that, because it can't just be, well, I believe in you, you're wonderful. Well, that's great. You can think I'm nice all you want, but teaching you how to aspire to where you think I should go. And I think a lot of times we have not found that person, or if we have found that person because they don't look like us, we dismiss what they have to say. And so I would encourage you that if you have that person in your life who's not only going to tell you, yes, you're capable. I drive my students nuts. I want to see grades, how are you doing in your paper? You know you bombed that test and there's no reason you're too smart for that. This is what you need to do next. If you have that person in your life, hold on to them and cultivate the information that they're giving you, because trust me, if I told you my background and where I grew up and my family history, where I am now, I should not be. I should have 5 kids on welfare, baby daddies running around, not doing what I'm doing with my life, but because I had multiple people, but starting with that 6th grade teacher who did that for me, I am where I am today. So I just wanted to address that.
To involve like what my brother Alex said. It's not all about teachers or like COs or anything. I think it's like involve like the community, because we need to work with the community, because every time I walk down the streets, I'm always looked in a different way, because I live in New Bedford, and next thing you know, everybody's looking at me some type of way because they think I'm a fellow from the streets, like I'm a gangbanger because I have tattoos and the way I walk. But the thing is, people don't realize, like one day I was walking down the street. I don't walk how I walk because I got into an accident. I got hit by a drunk driver. And then old lady was struggling with the groceries. And then I see her struggling, and next thing you know, I'm with my boy doesn't want to do nothing about it. But out of me, I have respect, because since I was a military brat, that's how I was. That's how I was raised. So then I went and I actually gave the lady a hand. And she literally, she pushed me away, and then she thought I was going to rob her or something like that. And next thing you know, I looked and I was just trying to help her out. I was trying to help an elderly out, because and then she was like, why are you helping me out? I was like, because I see you struggling. The community needs to look at the young people and not think like, oh, they're all the same. They need to look at them like, okay, maybe some of them are different. If they want to help you out, maybe they actually want to change. Not all of them are the same. Because if actually somebody is helping people out, then that's change right there. And then she told me, she was just like, God bless you, thank you for everything. And ever since then, that just gave me a change. That actually gave me motivation. okay, maybe actually people can believe in us. But also we just gotta change it. We gotta change the community, and we gotta think like, yo, let's help the community out. Like youth build, we're helping the community. We're cleaning up outsides. We're cleaning up. I want to work with the elderly. I want to go to homes, work with them, talk to them. I also want to work with kids, like tell them like it's all about school. And then I was talking to Gift to Give. I was talking to Jim, and he was saying he wants to put a couple people from colleges. And he wants to put a couple people from youth build or from the youth and put them together and actually work with kids, because there's actually people that are in college doing their thing, but there's also people that have been through the struggle, and they actually can tell the kids like, don't go through the struggle because it's not the right path. So.
All right, thank you. At this time, we want to have each of our panelists give you closing remarks, and then we're going to hear from Professor Anthony Hubbard, who's again the visionary behind You Build Providence, and he will offer some closing remarks. I always enjoy hearing Professor Hubbard speak, so look forward to that.
Yeah, I'm gonna make it brief for sure. I was just excited to be here. Anytime I'm around young people, I get rejuvenated. I don't get paid for probably 98% of the jobs that I do. Ask my kids, we're poor. So when I come out and speak to young people, I get excited. It gets me going for another 6 months or so. So I look forward to seeing big things from my people over there from New Bedford, from Providence. I see some kids that I've mentored since they were 6, 7 years old, here doing big things. I'm proud of you, Elijah. So let's just keep doing good. Thank you.
I'm still thinking about my closing remarks, so somebody else wants to. I just want to let you know that it's been an absolute pleasure to be here with all of you this morning. Just keep on keeping on. You know, keep it real, keep it authentic. You know, just know that there are resources and people out there that want to help in a lot of different ways. Like Davida said in her earlier comments, you know, she's got a story, I got a story. You know, I'm a college dropout. So for those of us who are in these positions of influence, sometimes we need to be real with ourselves. And it's okay to let young people know that, you know, we have our own baggage and we have our own challenges that we went through. So we need to get to that, be that authentic self. You know, just throw away the suit, you know, throw away the title on the business card for those of us who are in those positions, and just, you know, share the story and just, you know, continue to focus on the good, the positive. And there are going to be hiccups in the road. It's just a matter of lessons learned and how you're able to pivot in those moments, those defining moments. But don't let situations define you. You get to write your manuscript, so make sure you make it a good one.
First off, I'd like to say I am truly blessed to be in the presence of everybody in here. And to the gentleman in the back, appreciate you, brother. We needed that. And for you young fellas, like the gentleman said in the back, you guys need to reach out to the younger kids, because it's already been set up for them to fail. So if you guys are on the right track, reach down, pull them up, break the chain, and we'll be all right. But you guys gotta want to do it. You know, we can take a horse to water, but they ain't gotta drink it, and that's what we're doing today. We're trying to get you guys to drink this water. Thank you.
First, I'd like to thank Anthony and Robert for inviting me out here today. To all of you young gentlemen, you know, Youth Build, thank Youth Build. My closing remarks is just going to be some advice to all of my young men that are out there still moving forward. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to make this a little personal, I'm going to tell y'all like I tell my boys, they're 15 and 16. So the first thing is to do you. Do you. Do not try to be like anybody else. Identify what your talents are, what your goals are, and you make it happen. You find the people who are on that same road as you, wanting to do great things, and come together. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't do something.
That's right.
You lead your destiny. It can be an old person. It can even sometimes be somebody who you respect. But if you have that fire in your belly that you want to be a doctor, lawyer, entrepreneur, get your professional swag on, do you. The other is be where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. You hear me? Be where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there and on time. The other is do what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it and to the best of your ability. Got me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And wait a minute, I'm not finished. And the last thing is, now everything I'm telling you, I'm telling my children. So just understand, all right? I'm talking to you, I'm talking to all y'all. The last thing is to reach for the moon. Make your goals high. You reach and you keep your eyes focused, because should you miss the moon, you'll still be up there in the stars.
So I'm not going to follow that with any words of wisdom. But what I would say is, I think we know what needs to be done. I think we have a wonderful model in Youth Build. We see it here in Youth Build Providence, and we see Youth Build New Bedford. The minister put it as succinctly as I think anybody here could put it. We need to follow that model to extend it, and to your point, to the young brother in the back, but you thought you were going to come here for us to address these predestined failures and how do we address these concerns? Well, the truth is that it's right in front of us. We know what we need to do. It's replicating Youth Build, to not only have it at the high school level, but to have it at the middle school level. But that, of course, takes resources, that takes will, that takes organizing, and that takes a community effort. That means we got to organize politically, we got to organize as a community to make sure that we have a chance for the young brothers to have role models like Youth Build, that the Youth Build role models are able to, like Youth Build is able to provide to these young people. So my closing remarks is that we have the model in front of us. We just need to have the will and the organizing motivation to make that happen.
All right. Thank you again to our distinguished panelists, all our panelists. Oh, that's right. That's right.
Quickly, just thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. But the one thing that I just want to say in my closing words is that a lot of times, when you're having a difficult life, when you're going through some challenges, that one thing that people don't tell you often is that you are worthy. And you are worthy of every blessing that is due to come your way. You are deserving of living your best life despite what other people may say. Like our colleague said, don't let other people tell you who you are, what you can and cannot do. And so if you know that you are worthy of everything that you want in this life, you will get it.
Thank you. Thank you all. At this time, we have Director Hubbard who will come and give the closing remarks.
say, first of all, thank you guys for your patience. I also want to thank my young brothers from Exeter Job Corps for coming out to support this event as well. I cannot begin to say thank you enough to the panelists who gave up of their time on this Friday morning, and then into the afternoon to come to talk about this very important issue for us here in Providence, in Rhode Island. It is a national issue, as we all have said. I had a piece of paper in my hand with my remarks, but Kimberly sort of kind of stole some of my thunder. So I tossed it in the trash. But my students know me, they know that I like to tell stories. So there's a story that goes as such. So there was this young brother who went to the National Museum of Art, and he came across this painting. And the painting was a chessboard, and it had the pieces on there, and he was sitting on one side of the chessboard, and there was this sinister looking figure, and you can use your imagination, sitting on the other side. And this young man looked broken and discouraged. And the title of this painting was Checkmate. And he stood there and he looked at this painting for 5 hours without moving, just looking at it, examining it. And the security guard was watching the young man watch the painting, and he was perplexed. So he went over to him, he said, "Young man, you know, we're gonna close in an hour." And the young man looked at him and said, "Okay." So about 5 minutes before closing time, he heard the young man scream out loud, "It's a lie." And the security guard was like, "What are you talking about?" He said, "It's a lie. It's not checkmate. He has one more move." So the reason why we having these conversations, and these conversations will continue throughout the summer months, is because it's a lie. Yes, it may be true that this time of year, a lot of young people are celebrating commencements and graduations, and they're moving on, and they're going to be successful. But it's also true that we are burying some of our young soldiers and our young brothers and sisters all in the same breath. And some of you may have this feeling that this is as good as it gets. My destiny was already written for me. Why try? Because no one expects anything from me. The reason I can sit in the back of the class and do nothing is because I'm invisible to the system, to the teacher, to the principal. I'm telling you, the game is not over. It is not checkmate. You may be put in check, but you know if you strategically move one more space, you can create a whole new different outcome of that game. So we are here today to tell you that we, as practitioners, thought partners, parents, people who just give a damn, we are here to make sure that we are creating the political landscape, the resources. We're going to be advocating for the resources so that you can build your skills, so that you can have one more move in life. But it all goes back to you. If you know me, you know I will go down with the count. But I'm not going to fight this fight alone. And these people are not going to fight this fight alone. You need to gear up, lace up your boots, and come fight with us. Because if you remember anything about history, most of the civil rights issues and battles that was fought in this country was by young people. Any movement that made a difference to humanity was done by young people. It is no longer acceptable for you to be invisible. It is no longer acceptable for you to have no voice. You have a lot to say about a lot of things, but one thing you need to be able to say today when you leave here is that I command my future. And whatever happens from this moment on, I take full responsibility. because I have a group of people who I know has my best interest in heart, in mind. No more excuses. Excuses are the tools of the incompetent. What you have right now is my promise as a little program director in Oneyville, Providence, that I will bring together a coalition of people who will not only study and move forward the agenda for boys of color, but for any urban youth in crisis. Because you just can't affect the system for one particular population. So there's going to be some other folks that's going to get to the door as well. But please do not let the work go in vain. Thank you.
Hey, brother.